The December wind whipped around the corners of the Monarch, Manhattan's most exclusive residential building, as I approached its gleaming entrance. Snow dusted my simple wool coat, not the designer labels typically seen in this neighborhood, but I had my reasons for maintaining appearances. "Good evening," I said to Maxwell, the night doorman who'd worked here for 20 years. He'd never seen me without my maintenance uniform before. His eyes swept over my modest attire with practiced disdain. "Service entrance is around back." He gestured dismissively toward the alley. "This door is for residents only." I glanced up at the penthouse windows, my home though no one knew it. The mysterious owner of the Monarch was notorious for their privacy. Shell companies within shell companies protected my identity, letting me move freely through my own building unrecognized. "Actually," I began, "I'm here to see my sister." "Penthouse B." Maxwell's sneer deepened. "Miss Victoria Thompson doesn't associate with your kind. Now servants' entrance is that way." He pointed again to the alley. If he only knew that Miss Victoria Thompson had only moved into Penthouse B because I'd allowed it, hoping my sister might have changed since our parents died. The building's strict co-op board had mysteriously waived their usual requirements for her, on my anonymous orders of course. I pulled out my phone, opening the building management app I'd had custom designed. "Interesting approach to customer service, Maxwell." "Listen," he stepped forward menacingly, "I've worked here 20 years. I know every resident, every approved guest. You're neither. So unless you want me to call security." "Please do," I smiled, typing in my authorization code. "I'd love to meet the team I hired." His radio crackled. "Maxwell, we have an alert from ownership. Please stand down immediately." The color drained from his face as my signature appeared on his security tablet. The same signature that appeared on his paychecks. But you're the owner?" "Yes." I watched the realization hit him. "Though I prefer your kind, or servant." Such colorful terms for someone who signs your bonus checks. The massive glass doors swung open automatically, another custom feature I'd had installed. Above us, lights flickered in Penthouse B. Victoria was home, about to learn that her struggling sister owned not just her building but half the block. I didn't." Maxwell stammered. "Know that the maintenance worker you've been sneering at for 5 years actually owns the building?" I stepped past him into the marble lobby. That was rather the point. My phone buzzed, the building's management system alerting me to my sister's elevator descent. Perfect timing. "The thing about servants' entrances, Maxwell," I said quietly, "is that they give you an excellent view of how people behave when they think no one important is watching." The elevator chimed. Victoria emerged in her usual cloud of designer perfume and entitlement, stopping short when she saw me. "Sarah." Her perfectly arranged features twisted in confusion. "What are you doing here?" "And through the front door, no less." I smiled, reaching for my phone again. "Just checking on my investment. Sometimes the best way to understand what you own is to work within it. And sometimes the most valuable lessons about human nature come through the servant's entrance. Even when you own all the others." "Investment." Victoria laughed, that familiar dismissive laugh. "Don't tell me you're still playing with that little app business of yours." Maxwell shifted uncomfortably, seeing what was coming. "Actually, I pulled up the building's ownership documents on my phone. I was talking about this building. And the next 3 on the block. And most of the commercial real estate in this zip code." Victoria's designer clutch hit the marble floor with a crack that echoed through the lobby. "What are you talking about?" Victoria's voice shook slightly. "This is the most exclusive building in Manhattan. The owner is some mysterious billionaire who started a tech company in their garage 15 years ago." I finished. "Who developed revolutionary security software that now protects most of the world's financial institutions. Who bought this building through a maze of shell companies 5 years ago." I pulled up more documents on my phone, watching Victoria's carefully maintained facade crack. That's impossible," she whispered. "You live in that tiny apartment in Brooklyn. You work maintenance jobs. You borrowed money from me last Christmas." "The apartment is a front," I explained. "The maintenance work was research. And that loan." I smiled. "Consider it a social experiment." One you failed spectacularly, by the way, with all those condescending lectures about financial responsibility. Maxwell had backed away, frantically reviewing years of security footage in his mind. Every time he'd ordered me to use the back entrance, every sneering comment about my uniform. But your clothes. Victoria gestured weakly at my simple wool coat. Our bespoke Italian cashmere, I confirmed. Just without the designer labels you think prove worth. The watch you mocked as cheap plastic last month? A prototype of my company's new quantum computing device. Worth more than your penthouse. The lobby's hidden screens activated at my command, displaying my empire. Office towers, residential buildings, tech campuses spanning 3 continents. Each property acquired quietly while my family thought I was wasting time with odd jobs and maintenance work. The real owner of the Monarch, I continued, is Eclipse Technologies, which is owned by Winter Holdings, which is controlled by ST Innovations. I paused. Want to guess what the SE stands for? Victoria swayed slightly. Sarah Thompson? The same sister you've been pitying for years. I pulled up the building's financial records. The same failure, who decided whether you met the co-op board's requirements. The same maintenance worker, who approved your renovation permits. The elevator timed again. My chief of operations emerged, carrying files I'd requested. Miss Thompson, she nodded professionally. The acquisition paperwork is ready. We can proceed with the merger whenever you're ready. Victoria's eyes widened. Merger. Eclipse Technologies is acquiring Global Tech Solutions, I confirmed. You know them, right? The company your husband works for. Victoria grabbed the marble reception desk for support. Her husband was a mid-level executive at Global Tech, constantly bragging about his corporate influence. As of tomorrow, I continued, he'll be working for his sister-in-law, the one he said needed to learn basic business skills at last year's Thanksgiving dinner. Maxwell had retreated to his security desk, likely updating his resume. Victoria stood frozen, her worldview shattering like her dropped clutch on the marble floor. But why, she finally managed. Why pretend to work as? Because true understanding of a business comes from the ground up, I replied. Every maintenance shift taught me something about building operations. Every service entrance showed me where security needed improvement. Every condescending comment from residents like you showed me what needed to change in management. My phone buzzed again, stock alerts showing Eclipse Technologies' latest surge. The merger news would break tomorrow, adding billions to my hidden empire. The penthouse above yours? I added casually. That's my actual home. I've lived there for years, watching you host parties below, listening to you mock your poor sister, to your society friends. Victoria's legs finally gave out. She sank onto a lobby bench, her perfect world crumbling. The doorman who sent me to the service entrance? The maintenance worker you ignored? The sister you pitied? I straightened my simple coat. They're all the same person who signs your lease, approves your renovations, and just bought your husband's company. Sometimes the best view of an empire comes from the bottom up. And sometimes the most powerful person in the room is the one nobody sees at all. Now, I smiled at my shattered sister, shall we discuss your rent increase? Because sometimes justice is best served not with revenge, but with the simple revelation of truth, and a carefully calculated adjustment to the lease agreement. Maxwell fumbled with his security tablet, no doubt discovering that every dismissive interaction had been logged, every sneer recorded by the building's advanced security system, the same system I'd developed while wearing a maintenance uniform. The lobby fell silent except for the soft hum of hidden technology, my technology, running through the building's veins like a digital heartbeat, recording every moment of this long-awaited revelation. The next morning, Wall Street woke to breaking news. Tech giant Eclipse Technologies acquires Global Tech in historic $50 billion deal. My phone buzzed continuously with messages from Victoria and her husband, each one more panicked than the last. I sat in my real office. Not the maintenance room they knew, but the entirety of the sleek building next to the Monarch. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a perfect view of my sister's penthouse, where she'd been pacing since dawn. Ms. Thompson, my assistant, entered with a tablet. The Global Tech Board is assembled in the main conference room. Mr. Thompson appears distressed. I smiled, remembering my brother-in-law's condescending career advice over the years. Tell James I'll be there shortly. Let him sweat a bit. The screens in my office displayed my expanding empire. Tech companies, real estate holdings, innovation labs across the globe. Each one acquired quietly while my family thought I was struggling to make ends meet. Also, my assistant continued, the co-op board requests an emergency meeting. Apparently, several residents are concerned about having unknowingly insulted the owner. Including Mrs. Davidson from 12B? I asked, thinking of the woman who'd once reported me to security for using the main elevator while in my maintenance uniform. She sent flowers. And a rather desperate letter. I checked the building's security feeds. The lobby was chaos. Residents who'd spent years looking through me suddenly desperate to prove they'd always treated maintenance staff with respect. Maxwell hadn't shown up for his shift. Your sister is here, my assistant announced. She's been in the lobby for an hour, telling everyone who'll listen that she's the owner's sister. Ironic, I noted, considering how hard she worked to hide that relationship when she thought I was just maintenance staff. The conference room footage showed James Thompson tugging at his collar, staring at the Eclipse Technologies logo that would soon replace Global Tech's. Sometimes karma arrives wearing a maintenance uniform, carrying a mop and a multi-billion-dollar acquisition plan. Send Victoria up, I said, turning to face the Manhattan skyline. It's time she saw what her struggling sister has really been building. The elevator chimed and Victoria stepped into my real world, her designer heels clicking on marble floors that cost more than her annual salary. Sarah, she whispered, taking in the command center of my empire. What is all this? I turned, letting her see her sister not as the maintenance worker she'd dismissed, but as the power player I'd always been. This, I gestured to the screens showing my global operations, is what I was really doing while you thought I was wasting time with odd jobs. Her eyes darted from screen to screen, reality finally sinking in. The maintenance work was research, I confirmed. Every building I serviced I eventually bought. Every company that hired me for janitorial work became a subsidiary. Even that temp job I had at Global Tech last year. I wasn't there to clean offices. I was evaluating the company for acquisition. Victoria sank into a chair, her world inverting. James, his job will depend entirely on how well he adapts to having his unemployable sister-in-law as his boss, I finished. Though his corner office is being converted to a maintenance supply room. Poetic justice, don't you think? The screens showed more of my holdings. Tech patents worth billions, real estate empires spanning continents, innovations that had revolutionized industries, all built while they thought I was barely surviving. But why? Victoria's voice cracked. Why let us think? Let us treat you like. I sat behind my desk, the Manhattan skyline framing the moment. Because sometimes the best way to understand what you're building is to start from the ground floor. Literally. 6 months later, I stood at the podium of Eclipse Technologies' annual shareholder meeting, my formerly hidden empire now the talk of Wall Street. The acquisition of Global Tech had been just the beginning. My maintenance worker facade had given me insider access to dozens of companies, each one now part of my growing conglomerate. Victoria and James sat in the front row, their positions in my company a daily reminder of how appearances can deceive. James had been demoted from executive to facilities coordinator, a job he'd once considered beneath him. Victoria's social circle had imploded once they realized she'd spent years mocking the sister who now owned half their apartments. Eclipse Technologies' growth this quarter has exceeded all projections, I announced to the packed auditorium. Our acquisition strategy, developed through years of ground-level research, has proven extraordinarily effective. The screens behind me showed my methodology. Years of maintenance work providing unprecedented insight into company operations, janitorial positions offering access to executive meetings, service entrances leading to boardrooms. The Thompson method, as it's now known in business schools, I continued, proves that true understanding of an organization must come from every level. Even, I smiled at the former Global Tech executives squirming in their seats, the levels you once considered beneath your notice. My phone buzzed. Another building acquisition complete. This time, it was the luxury complex where Victoria's best friend lived, the one who'd always made pointed comments about my unfortunate circumstances. Our next phase, I gestured to the screens displaying my newest projects, represents a fundamental shift in corporate structure. Every executive will now spend 1 month per year working maintenance positions. Every board member will experience life through the service entrance. The audience stirred uncomfortably. James tugged at his new uniform collar, the same type he'd once mocked me for wearing. Consider it, I continued, a practical education in humility. One I spent 15 years acquiring while building this company. Victoria shifted in her seat, remembering every dismissive comment, every condescending gesture, every moment she'd looked through me rather than at me. The maintenance worker you ignore? I addressed the room. Might own your building. The janitor you dismiss? Could be evaluating your company for acquisition. The sister you pity? I met Victoria's eyes. Might be signing your paychecks. The screens filled with more acquisitions, more expansions, more evidence that the biggest empires are sometimes built by the people you least suspect. Because true power, I concluded, isn't about who uses the front door. It's about who knows what's happening at every entrance, every level, every forgotten corner of an organization. Sometimes the best revenge isn't proving people wrong. It's showing them exactly how right you were all along, one acquired company at a time. And sometimes the most powerful person in the room is the one with the maintenance key to every door. The presentation shifted to my next major announcement, and with it, another layer of my carefully constructed empire was revealed.